Hi everybody, welcome to Neuroscience. I wanted to give you a basic flow of the class. First of all, it's going to be taught by myself and Lucy Wallace, who will be your TA. You want to copy both of us on any email that you send to us. So we're going to start the class with basically a study of philosophy. And the reason that's necessary in neuroscience is because we're thinking about the way people think. And in order to generate theories about the way people think, you need to think differently. I know that was really confusing, but I can give you an example. So, for example, if we're thinking about how we see, well, we can say, all right, I see a square. Or a philosopher might say, wow, first I see a bunch of dots. Then my brain organizes those into lines and then maybe into different shapes like squares, or maybe not squares, maybe things like faces. And then you go ahead and test theories like that. This is going to make a lot more sense as we do it more. Philosophy also helps us to recognize the major biases that are in neuroscience and the major assumptions that neuroscience makes that allows us to see the weaknesses of neuroscience. Okay, then we're going to take a look at the brain basically and see what parts there are and how they function. We're going to do our best to give you this kind of study of the brain from the perspective of the teenage brain and sort of why some of the reasons that your brain works the way you work, which makes you feel the way you feel. Also, kind of in this psychology and philosophy concept, we're going to have the idea of what it means to think. Um, and so, if you want to think really quickly about thinking again, uh, there is the output of a thought, which is oftentimes an action. And right before the output of that thought, there is moments before that some neurons that are firing. And moments before that, there are neurons that are communicating. And moments before that, there's visual and auditory, sense, taste, smell cues that kind of start those neurons from firing. And maybe a day or a few hours before that, there was some hormones that were being released from your, let's say, stomach that make you hungry, which influence the way your brain works as a whole. And then years before that, there is the way your brain developed. So some of us have different brains. For example, a part of my brain may be the different in size than a part of Lucy's brain, resulting in some behavioral changes. And that is where we're going to see the confluence of philosophy and psychology, basically thinking about how we think about what thought is. From there, we're going to move on to genetics and the neural anatomy of a neuron. So this is where we're going to look at, these are genes, they make things in a neuron, these are the parts of a neuron, this is how a neuron basically functions. We're going to put a bunch of those neurons together into what we call circuits and pathways. And then we're going to look at how those circuits form things like complicated behaviors like addiction. We're probably going to be looking mostly at either heroin addiction or cocaine addiction. Lucy and I are also looking at internet addiction, gambling addiction, sex addictions, even runner's high addictions as various other addictions that we're looking at. Just to see if those might be candidates for something we can teach, but that will depend on time. So that's going to be the flow of the class. The first two units, the philosophy and psychology units, are going to be pretty heavily skill-based. The neural anatomy and the circuits and then addiction are going to be both skill-based and they are going to be content-based. So the skills in the earlier parts are going to be, hey, basically, can you analyze a piece of pop psych or something like that, and can you find logical fallacies? Can you think about how the author was thinking about thought? Whereas in the latter parts of the semester, the skills are mainly going to be like, hey, can you learn about this addiction from current papers and find out what the current thought is on it, what the newest theories are. That's going to be your course. It's going to be really, really tough. You are going to need to stay on top of things. Please make sure you do that. You can always come in to see Lucy and I on Mondays during tutorial for the Monday help session. We will always be there. Um, You should email both of us with any questions. I am kind of bad with email. I'm trying to get better, but it's a little difficult at Nueva. Um, anyway, you're going to learn some really, really cool stuff, some really, really pertinent stuff, some really, really important stuff. Okay, peace.